When I arrived at the restaurant for my daughter's wedding, her groom rolled his eyes and muttered, "Oh no, that old man is here again." But then his father froze, whispering, "Is it really him?" The waiters slipped into the shadows, and the guests stared in silence. At that moment, they realized who I truly was. That day became more than just my daughter's wedding. It was also the day justice was served. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and share in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. Interesting little place. A bit dated, isn't it? Leland Harrington remarked as he stood in my doorway surveying the hardwood floors and vintage wallpaper like museum pieces. His expensive polo and pressed khakis, likely worth more than my monthly groceries, only highlighted his unease. "We like it here," I replied with a forced smile, stepping aside. Beatrice grew up in this house. My daughter entered from the kitchen, glowing in her blue sundress, absent-mindedly touching her engagement ring. "Leland, you found it okay?" She kissed his cheek, but he barely responded. Eventually, GPS doesn't like this neighborhood. He glanced at the family photos on the wall, the well-kept furniture my late wife and I collected over decades. "People your age usually don't follow modern design trends," he said, casually dismissive. The sting was real, though subtle. Beatrice flushed. "Dad's been cooking all morning. Let's eat." I had prepared lamb chops with rosemary, roasted vegetables, and fresh bread. The dining table gleamed with my best dishes, napkins folded neatly. Leland sat like he was doing us a favor, phone in hand. "So Leland," I said while serving, "Beatrice tells me you're in finance investment consulting." He cut his lamb precisely, chewed once, then set his fork down. "Complicated work. Requires understanding market dynamics most people your age wouldn't get." Beatrice rushed in. "Dad's always been great with money, actually." "I'm sure," Leland replied with a thin smile. "But different generations, different methods. Nothing wrong with keeping things simple." Simple, as if my work had been no more than a lemonade stand. He picked at the food like it was contaminated. "This house has such character." Beatrice tried, gesturing to the crown molding and bay windows. "Could use updating," Leland said, checking his watch. "Outdated wiring, maybe asbestos. When we're married, we'll want something modern, smart home, clean lines. When, not if," as though her future was already purchased. "Have you two thought about wedding venues yet?" I asked while refilling his glass. "Oh yes," Beatrice began, but Leland cut her off. "We're looking at the finest places in the city. Money's no concern. We want something that reflects our status." "Our status," he said it while staring at me, like a challenge. Asterisk, the fog outside thickened, and the room felt colder. I served dessert, homemade apple pie. Leland took a single bite, then ignored it. "Well," he said, checking his phone again, "we should cover the practical matters, guest lists, venues." His tone was more corporate than celebratory. I looked at my daughter, still trying to hold the conversation together. Her happiness mattered more than my pride. But a thought was forming. This man saw us as obstacles, relics to be discarded. What he didn't realize was that old things can still cut deep. Beatrice mentioned a few venues she had seen online. Perfect timing. "I know a great restaurant for weddings," I said casually. "Reasonable rates, excellent food. The chef is incredible." Leland's fork hit his plate. "We're not beggars. The wedding will be at my father's restaurant, Harrington's Prime, the finest in the city." His voice spiked. Beatrice nearly spilled her coffee. Leland calmed down. "Dad was only trying to help." "Help? Your father thinks we need advice on finding a reasonable venue. Do you know how insulting that is?" "I didn't realize your family was in the restaurant business," I said evenly. "Not just any restaurant." His chest swelled. "Harrington's Prime. 5-star dining. Governors, tech executives, international dignitaries. The wedding industry calls us for true luxury." "Impressive," I said. "Where is it?" "Downtown Financial District. Montgomery and Bush." His pride was obvious. "My father started with one bistro 30 years ago. Now we're the leading fine dining destination in Northern California." Beatrice looked nervous, but I pressed lightly. "Your father must be quite skilled." "How many employees?" 47 full-time. Executive chef from New York, sommelier trained in France, multilingual staff. Even the kitchen cost more to build than most people earn in 5 years. "And you manage operations?" "I oversee the business side," financials, investments, vendor contracts. His earlier condescension shifted into boastful pride. Running a multi-million-dollar operation takes discipline. Multi-million-dollar, 47 employees, prime real estate. The numbers interested me. That's remarkable, I said. The overhead must be enormous. Rent alone downtown. Rent? He laughed sharply. We own the building, paid outright in 2019. No loans, no investors, pure family money. I stored that detail carefully. Beatrice had gone silent, sensing the tension. Well, I said at last, it seems Beatrice will have quite the celebration. I'm sure your father's restaurant will deliver the wedding she deserves. Exactly, Leland said, adjusting his shirt. The Harrington name stands for quality, tradition, excellence. That's what matters. Unlike this old home, where my daughter grew up loved and happy. The meal was finished in his mind, though his dessert sat untouched. Speaking of the restaurant, I asked casually, what kind of cuisine? New American with French influence. Prix-fixe menus start at $120 a person. Wine pairings extra. We're booked solid through December. He checked his watch again, this time less discreetly. Actually, I should head out soon. Early morning tomorrow. The fog outside had thickened into true San Francisco gray, and it was clear Leland's mind was already gone. Still, he had given me exactly what I wanted, boastful details about the family business, its location, its finances, its employees, 47 staff relying on Harrington's prime, a multi-million-dollar operation, valuable property owned outright, impressive on the surface, but also vulnerable. Of course, I said evenly. Thank you for coming. This has been informative. Well, I should get going. Leland stood quickly, already reaching for his jacket. The fog pressed heavy against the windows as he moved toward the door. Our farewell was awkward. A short handshake for me, a distracted kiss for Beatrice. I'll call tomorrow about the venue. We need to finalize dates. I watched from the porch as he climbed into his black BMW. Of course it was a BMW, and sped off, tail lights swallowed by the mist, leaving only the faint smell of exhaust behind. Beatrice stood beside me, arms wrapped tight against the cold. I'm sorry about Leland, she whispered. He's just very protective of the family business. He gets defensive when people suggest alternatives. She winced. Dad, please. He didn't mean anything. His father worked so hard for that restaurant. They're just proud of it. I understand pride, I said, guiding her back inside where warmth waited. But pride and arrogance aren't the same thing. In the living room, softer lamplight filled the space. Beatrice curled into the same corner of the sofa she had as a child whenever serious talks were needed. He made you feel small, she said quietly. I saw it, the way he talked about the house, about your ideas. I tried to change the subject, but he wouldn't let it go. Beatrice. I leaned forward. I need you to do something for me, and I need you not to ask questions right now. Her brow furrowed. What kind of something? Don't tell him about my work. Not what I do, not where. Keep it private. Dad, he already thinks you're just some retiree tinkering around the house. Why would... Just trust me. Can you do that? She searched my face for answers I wasn't ready to give. Finally, she nodded. Of course, but you're being mysterious, and I don't like mysteries. Sometimes mysteries have good reasons, I said. A car door slammed outside. Leland's BMW had returned. Beatrice hurried to the window. He's back. Probably forgot something. But he didn't approach the door. Instead, the engine revved again. Through the fog, I saw Beatrice rush outside, her blue dress vivid against the gray. She'd left her jacket inside. She slid into the passenger seat. A brief exchange, gestures I couldn't read. Then they drove away again, this time for good. The house felt different once they were gone. Larger, quieter, but more focused somehow. I cleaned the dinner dishes slowly, my thoughts circling Harrington's prime, Montgomery and Bush. 47 employees, family-owned, multi-million-dollar scale. Leland believed he knew exactly what kind of man I was. A retired widower in an outdated house, out of touch with modern business, making naive suggestions about affordable restaurants. A father whose daughter had managed to marry up. He had no idea that old things can be sharper than they seem. I dried the last plate and climbed to my office. Just a little research, I told myself, only to better understand the empire my future son-in-law was so proud of. The computer hummed to life, the glow reflecting in the window where fog pressed like curious fingers. My office, with its 2 monitors and worn leather chair, had always been my refuge. I typed Harrington's Prime San Francisco. The first result was their glossy website, polished photos of plated dishes, a spotless dining room, glowing testimonials. The kind of image that costs money to maintain. The details matched Leland's boasting, 847 Montgomery Street, corner of Bush. Hours Tuesday to Saturday, 5:30, 10:30 p.m. Closed Sundays and Mondays. Prix-fixe menu, starting at $120. Wine pairings extra. But websites sell an image. Reviews tell the truth. I opened Yelp, Google, Open Table. A clear pattern appeared, and not a flattering one. Negative reviews piling up over 6 months. Slow service, overpriced food. Staff with attitudes. Waited 45 minutes for appetizers. Steak came cold. Waiter rolled his eyes when I complained. Beautiful space, terrible execution. Server vanished for 20 minutes. Food lukewarm, not worth the price. I pulled out a yellow legal pad, an old habit from years of note-taking. Complaints were consistent. Poor service, declining food quality, dismissive staff, not fabricated. Real details, specific dishes, dates, names. Too precise to be fake. Health department records confirmed it. 2 violations in 8 months. Improper storage temperatures. Inadequate hand-washing stations. Small issues, but good restaurants don't accumulate them. Leland's picture of perfection, 5-star dining, governors and executives, wasn't supported by the facts. Instead, I saw a restaurant living off reputation, slipping badly in execution. I leaned back in my chair. This wasn't just about a wedding venue anymore. It was about my daughter's future, with a man whose family business looked strong on the outside but unstable underneath. The clock on my computer read 5:30 p.m., dinner time for most, though Harrington's Prime wouldn't open until Tuesday. That gave me 2 days to decide. Investigate further or trust the negative reviews were exceptions. That Leland's confidence was genuine. 2 days to choose between cautious father and interfering old man. I closed the laptop softly, but the address was already fixed in my mind. 847 Montgomery Street. Open Tuesday through Saturday. Perhaps it was time to see if the Harrington empire was as strong as Leland claimed. Monday passed slowly, weighed down by the memory of Saturday's lunch, every smug comment and dismissive gesture replaying in my head. By evening, curiosity had hardened into determination. Fog clung to downtown as I walked 3 blocks from Montgomery Street BART to 847 Montgomery. Harrington's Prime occupied the base of a restored 19th century building, its facade styled with old-world charm. Brass fixtures, etched glass, and a burgundy awning with gold lettering. In restaurants, first impressions matter. Theirs looked promising. A hostess in black, wearing a practiced smile, greeted me. "Good evening. Do you have a reservation? I was hoping you might have something available, just for one." Her eyes swept over my blazer and khakis. Sufficient but unimpressive. "We're quite busy tonight, but I think we can accommodate you." Her tone implied she was granting a favor. She led me to a small table by the kitchen doors, typical placement for walk-ins. Guests considered less important. Fine by me. Better view of operations from there. The dining room worked hard at sophistication. Dark wood, crisp linens, crystal fixtures, but details stood out. Water spots on glasses, frayed upholstery, carpet thinned by years of traffic, deferred maintenance, corners cut where most wouldn't notice. A young waiter approached with a menu, his confidence bordering on arrogance. "Can I start you with something to drink?" he asked, eyes already drifting to other tables. "Just water for now. I'll need a few minutes." He nodded without enthusiasm and walked off. I studied the menu, New American with French influences, just as Leland had described. Filet mignon, $58. Lobster risotto, $42. Duck confit, $39. Premium prices demanding flawless execution. Around me, the restaurant buzzed with forced energy. Servers moved briskly, yet timing faltered. Some tables received entrees before appetizers were cleared. Others still waited for drinks. Service rhythm was broken. At the table beside me, a woman whispered, frustrated, 20 minutes for bread service. At these prices, it's absurd. When my waiter returned, I ordered filet mignon, medium rare, with potato gratin. Of course, he replied, though a faint smirk suggested amusement. Right out turned into 45 minutes. I watched meals arrive at other tables while mine remained absent. When the steak finally came, it was overcooked and lukewarm, the potato gratin stiff and unappealing. "How is everything?" he asked, already walking away. Actually, I called him back. "This steak is well done, not medium rare." He glanced with theatrical concern. "The kitchen's really backed up. I could have them redo it, but it'll be another 30 minutes. 30 more minutes at a place charging top rates." I thought of the health code violations, the critical reviews, the hidden decline. "That's fine," I said. His relief was telling. Likely most complaints were stalled long enough for guests to give up. An efficient way to cut costs while preserving the illusion of fine dining. I ate slowly, observing. Staff huddled in corners, muttering about guests and management. From the kitchen came clattering pans and raised voices, the atmosphere of a workplace where standards had slipped, and no one cared to fix them. When I asked for the check, my conclusions were clear. Harrington's Prime wasn't a 5-star establishment hosting executives. It was a declining restaurant trading on reputation while delivering mediocrity, and my daughter wanted her wedding reception here. The thought was harder to stomach than the steak. The bill sat before me like an accusation. $87 for a substandard meal. I reached for my wallet when a door slammed in back, followed by sharp footsteps. "What is he doing here?" The voice cut through the room, firm and angry. I looked up to see Leland emerge from an office, face flushed as he spotted me. Conversations dropped to whispers as he strode toward me, barely contained fury in his steps. Staff quickly buried themselves in busy work, avoiding their boss's gaze. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, reaching my table with such force the glasses rattled. "Did you come to spy on my restaurant?" I set my napkin down calmly, years of practice keeping my tone steady. "I just wanted dinner, Leland. Your place has quite a reputation." "That's nonsense." His voice rose, drawing stares. "You're here to cause trouble, to undermine us." The accusation was so irrational I almost laughed. "Leland, I ordered and ate. Nothing more. Get out," he snapped, the words hitting like a slap. "Leave immediately." The dining room fell silent. Servers froze mid-step. The hostess looked mortified, and nearby diners openly stared. "Leland," I said evenly, "you're making a scene." "Perhaps we should." I said. "Get out," he shouted, face reddening, voice echoing through the room. "You have no business here. This is harassment." Harassment for dining in public. I wondered what his father would think, what the other guests thought as they watched Harrington's supposed director unravel. Slowly, I placed exact cash plus tip on the table. Professional habits die hard. I wasn't about to give him ammunition by walking out on the bill. "I'll leave," I said, loud enough for others to hear. "Thank you for the enlightening evening." The walk to the door felt endless, every eye following me, some sympathetic, others curious about the spectacle. Behind me, Leland's rant continued, railing about spies, harassment, and family honor. Cool night air met me outside like a relief. I walked down Montgomery Street, reflecting on what I'd seen: Leland's paranoia, his loss of composure, his staff's fearful silence. This wasn't simply a restaurant with poor service. It was a business led by someone unstable, someone who saw enemies in customers and threats in honest questions. And this was the man my daughter wished to build her life with. Fog drifted around the street lamps as I made my way toward the station, but my mind had never been clearer. I had gone seeking details about a wedding venue, but what I uncovered was far more troubling. A future son-in-law whose judgment and temperament were worse than I'd imagined. Fog thickened around the Montgomery Street lamps. As I walked away from Harrington's Prime, my steps echoing on the wet pavement, commuters hurried past, eager to escape the damp chill of downtown San Francisco. Behind me, the restaurant glowed warmly, a backdrop for whispered conversations about the man ejected for nothing more than eating dinner. Professional embarrassment was not unfamiliar, but this felt different, personal, cutting in a way I hadn't expected. I turned onto Bush Street, letting habit lead me toward Powell Street BART. Along the way, I passed 3 other restaurants, a family-run Italian spot with checkered cloths, a trendy gastropub glowing with craft beer signs, and a small Chinese place serving the same recipes for decades. Each was alive with satisfied diners and attentive staff, the very atmosphere Harrington's only pretended to offer. The walk cleared my thoughts. The steady rhythm of my steps replaced the chaos of Leland's shouting. By the time I reached Market Street, shock had given way to analysis. What I witnessed wasn't just poor service, or one rough evening, it was systemic failure. An understaffed kitchen, untrained servers, management that reacted with hostility rather than solutions. And if this was how he treated his future father-in-law, what would happen to Beatrice after the wedding? The question followed me down into the station, through the turnstiles, onto the train heading home. I'd seen this pattern professionally. Businesses polished on the outside, rotting within, pride concealing incompetence, arrogance masking desperation. Leland's eruption hadn't been about defending reputation. It was about protecting lies. As the train swayed beneath the bay, I thought of my late wife. Sarah always read people better than I did. Trust your instincts, she used to say. Your mind knows what your heart refuses to accept. My instincts were shouting now. Leland Harrington wasn't just arrogant. He was dangerous, not with fists, but in the way insecure men with power become dangerous. Through manipulation, through control, through slowly wearing others down. And Beatrice planned to marry him in 6 weeks. At my station, I climbed the stairs into heavier fog, muffling sound and turning streetlights into halos. The quiet residential blocks felt safer, simpler, everything my daughter was walking away from. By the time I reached my door, my professional mind was fully engaged. I had evidence now: failing operations, unstable leadership, and a man whose public behavior revealed deep flaws. The question was what to do with it. Inside, the house was too quiet. I hung my coat, reached for the light switch, then my phone rang. "How could you do that, Dad? Leland told me everything." Beatrice's voice hit like a blow. Anger poured through the line. No greeting, no hesitation, just accusation. "Beatrice, it's not what you think. He said you caused a scene, that you humiliated him in front of his staff and customers. How could you do that?" I sank into a chair, coat still in hand. "I went there for dinner. That's all." "You went there to spy on him, to tear down his family's business." Each word landed harder than the last. "He trusted you, and you betrayed him." Leland had gotten to her first, shaping the story, casting himself the victim before I returned home. My thoughtful, rational daughter had been turned into a weapon against me. "Beatrice, listen. I simply ordered a meal. Stop lying." Her voice cracked with sobs. "He said you harassed staff, complained constantly, made trouble. And when he politely asked you to leave, you caused a scene, politely." The word was so far from the truth, it was almost laughable. Except none of this was laughable. "That's not what happened," I said evenly. "I paid, I ate, I was leaving when he saw me. He became aggressive. He was protecting his family from your malicious intent," she said, repeating his phrasing word for word. The transformation was stunning. Days earlier she had admitted discomfort with his arrogance. Now she spoke with his voice. "Sweetheart, I know you want to defend him. Don't call me sweetheart." Her fury was like nothing I'd heard before. "You've shown your true feelings. You don't want me happy. you can't stand that I found someone successful. That's not true. I only want your happiness. Then why sabotage his business? Why can't you stay out of our lives? Stay out of our lives. The words cut deeper than the accusations. This was my daughter. The girl I raised alone after Sarah died, the woman I supported through school and heartbreak, now telling me to leave her life because of a man she'd known 8 months. Beatrice, I tried once more. Please consider there might be another side. There isn't, she said firmly. I believe the man I'm marrying. I believe someone who loves me. And if you can't respect that, maybe you shouldn't be part of our wedding. Her threat hung like smoke. I sat in the dark, listening to her ragged breathing through the line. Outside, fog pressed against the windows like curious ghosts. I see, I said softly. Do you? Because I'm done. Done with your suspicions, your interference. Leland was right. Some people can't be happy for others' success. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, hoping it would ring again with an apology, an explanation, something to restore the daughter I thought I knew. But silence stretched on, broken only by the distant sounds of the city settling into night. Leland hadn't only thrown me out of his restaurant. He had thrown me out of my daughter's life. The weeks that followed unfolded like a slow disaster. I called Beatrice 17 times over the next month. Every call went to voicemail. Every message grew more desperate. My texts showed delivered but unread, vanishing into her anger. Beatrice, please call. We need to talk. Sweetheart, I'm worried. I love you. Nothing mattered. Silence had always been her armor. As a child, she could shut out the world when she felt betrayed. That same defense now kept me out, this time at Leland's urging. My home felt empty without her weekly visits, without the sound of her laughter filling the kitchen where she once helped me cook Sunday dinners. Out of habit, I still set 2 places at the table, only to stare at the chair where she used to sit, vent about work, ask for advice about men unworthy of her time, and talk about the future that once seemed so bright. A future that now had Leland Harrington at its center. I buried myself in work, staying late at the office, taking on tasks I would usually delegate, doing anything to avoid returning to the silence. My colleagues noticed the shift but assumed it was ordinary stress. None of them knew about the daughter, who no longer answered my calls, or the future son-in-law who had successfully damaged the most important relationship in my life. 3 weeks into the silence, I nearly drove to her apartment. I sat in my car outside for 20 minutes, watching her windows for signs of life. But what could I say? How do you make someone see they've been manipulated when the manipulator has cast you as the villain? I left without knocking. May arrived with San Francisco's usual unpredictability, bright mornings giving way to foggy afternoons. One Tuesday evening, while sorting through the mail, I saw the envelope, heavy cream paper, elegant script, the kind used for major occasions. Mr. Delbert Myers was cordially invited to the wedding of Miss Beatrice Catherine Myers and Mr. Leland James Harrington. Saturday, May 17, 2025. Reception at Harrington's Prime. I turned the invitation over in my hands, like it might contain a hidden message. After weeks of silence, she had still invited me, whether out of duty, hope, or because Leland insisted on showing me how little my opinion mattered by having me watch her marry the man I had warned her against. And the reception would be at Harrington's Prime. Of course, the very restaurant where I had been humiliated, where Leland revealed his true nature before witnesses. They wanted me to see my daughter begin her future in the same place where her fiancé had exposed who he really was. I placed the invitation on the kitchen table and stared at it while making coffee. I had 24 hours to decide whether to attend the wedding of someone who no longer spoke to me, to watch her commit to a man I knew would bring her misery. 24 hours to figure out how to stop her from making the greatest mistake of her life. The coffee grew cold as I sat planning. My professional instincts surfaced, weighing risks and outcomes, calculating how things could unfold. But beneath the analysis was something stronger and far more simple. a father's love that refused to let go, even when surrender seemed the rational choice. Tomorrow, Beatrice would marry Leland Harrington. Tomorrow, I would be there. Saturday morning came gray and cool, typical for San Francisco. I woke before dawn, the wedding invitation on my nightstand catching the early light like a quiet accusation. Today would change everything. The shower ran hotter than usual, steam fogging the mirror as I let the water ease the tension from my shoulders. Careful routines always steadied me before difficult assignments, and this morning was no different. Shave with the grain, then against, comb each strand into place. In my closet, I studied my formal suits with the same attention I once gave to restaurant reviews. Navy, charcoal, black. Each carried a message. Today required authority paired with restraint. The charcoal pinstripe was exact, professional, without excess. The tie took longer. Burgundy silk, conservative but strong. Sterling silver cufflinks from my late wife. A gift on our 20th anniversary, shoes polished to a mirror shine. Every detail mattered when dealing with people who judge by appearances. The man in the mirror looked older than I remembered. Months of sleepless nights and rushed meals had sharpened my features, given my expression a weight it once lacked. The professional armor was complete. On the dresser sat the wedding gift, a crystal vase from Tiffany, elegant, understated. A father's gift, not a display of wealth or power. The card inside read 3 simple words: "Love you always." I checked my watch, 8:30 a.m. The ceremony began at 2 p.m., with the reception immediately after. Enough time to drive downtown, secure parking, and choose my place before the moment came. Keys, wallet, invitation in the breast pocket. One last look at the empty house, knowing that tonight everything would be different. Either I would have my daughter back or I would lose her forever. But Leland Harrington would finally learn who he was dealing with. The front door closed behind me with deliberate finality. Some lessons must be taught that respect is not optional, and some old men are not as harmless as others assume. Harrington's prime had been dressed for the occasion. White silk softened rough edges I remembered, while careful lighting disguised watermarks and worn carpet, a transformation for appearance's sake. Fitting, really. I arrived during the cocktail hour, scanning the room as guests mingled in clusters, champagne glasses catching the light from chandeliers. Staff moved with exact precision, clearly under strict instruction to avoid any mistakes. "Dad." Beatrice's voice broke through the hum of conversation. She appeared at my side in her gown of ivory silk, its delicate beading catching the light as she moved. She was radiant, beautiful, and for a moment my chest tightened with love and protectiveness. "I'm so glad you came," she whispered, holding me close. "I hoped you would, after everything." "Wild horses couldn't keep me away," I answered honestly. "You look absolutely beautiful." Relief washed over her face. I had missed her deeply. The past month felt wrong without her around. As we stood together, I noticed several restaurant employees stealing glances. Word spread quickly among the staff. The man who once clashed with the boss had returned. Nervous energy rippled through them like stones breaking still water. Across the room near the bar, where wedding toasts would soon be raised, I spotted Leland speaking with an older man who could only be his father. Wayne Harrington carried the same air of arrogance as his son, though softened by years of running a business. They spoke intently, occasionally gesturing around the room. Oh no, that old man showed up again. Leland's voice carried farther than intended, drawing curious looks from nearby guests. Wayne followed his son's gaze, and his eyes landed on me, sharp and calculating. His tone in response was hard to read, part recognition, part concern. The two continued in hushed tones, but their uneasy glances in my direction said more than words. I stayed close to Beatrice, playing the role of the supportive father while observing carefully. Staff whispered to one another, discreetly pointing in my direction. Guests sensed tension, conversations softening as though everyone expected drama beneath the polished surface. Then Wayne straightened his tie and walked toward me, his expression neutral though his eyes betrayed his intent. Behind him, Leland shifted anxiously, dreading what was about to happen. "Good afternoon." Wayne offered his hand with practiced courtesy. "I'm Wayne Harrington, father of the groom and owner of this establishment." I don't believe we've properly met. Delbert Myers, I replied, returning the handshake firmly. Father of the bride. Ah yes, and how do you find my restaurant? I hope it meets your expectations. His question carried weight beyond small talk. Guests nearby leaned closer, sensing the significance. Don't worry, I said with calm precision, letting my voice carry just enough. Today I'm only here as a guest, not as a restaurant critic. The reaction was instant. Wayne's grip faltered, his eyes widened in sudden recognition. Guests snapped to attention. The words restaurant critic spread quickly, staff members freezing in place as the truth hit them. Their earlier treatment of me now looked like a serious mistake. Wayne began, then stopped, struggling to recover. Delbert Myers, San Francisco Chronicle, I confirmed evenly. Though today I'm simply here to celebrate my daughter's wedding. Beatrice stared at me with wide eyes. Dad, you're a restaurant critic, that's your job. Before I could respond, Leland rushed to my side. His arrogance from 6 weeks earlier was gone, replaced with pale desperation. Please, he whispered, his voice tight with panic. Please forgive me. I didn't know who you were. I never would have treated you that way. I see. I studied him with the same measured attention I once reserved for undercooked meals and inflated wine lists. Forgiveness takes time, Leland, especially since your behavior cost me a month of silence with my daughter. The reception carried on, but our small circle had become the focus. Wayne tried to manage with polite smiles. Staff exchanged worried glances, and Leland's hand shook as he reached for a champagne glass. I'll do anything to make this right, he said. What you can do, I replied steadily, is learn to treat people with respect, no matter who they are or what you think they can offer you. Beatrice slipped her arm through mine, realization finally settling in. This is why you asked me not to tell him about your work. Sometimes it's useful to see how people act when they think no one important is watching, I said, watching Leland's face shift between shame, fear, and desperate calculation. The man who once called me an interfering old fool, who had thrown me out of his restaurant, now stood seeking forgiveness he had not earned. Justice delivered not through anger but by truth revealed. Wayne cleared his throat, trying to regain control. Perhaps we should discuss how to move forward. I looked at my daughter, radiant in her gown, finally seeing her fiancé clearly for the first time. The decision of what came next was hers. At least now, she would choose with her eyes open. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching.